record. So welcome everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. And a very warm welcome to this half-hour webinar, which is all about transitioning to the care orientation at work. And this was work that was ongoing before the crisis hit around repivoting organizations to prioritize care, psychological safety, mental health of their workers as a core part of their business strategy. And our current environment, our current situation with coronavirus, of course, now really forcing us into this position. And the neuroscientific and clinical psychology models that we work with at the Mindfulness Center of Excellence and in the work that I do as an independent consultant, we're very interested in how the brain and the psychological insights can help us to manage a crisis like this more effectively and to help us switch mindsets. So this is the intention of sharing this knowledge today. How can we use this knowledge to create accelerated learning and accelerated possibilities for reorienting our mindset from profit to care? Now, it's not that quite black and white, of course, because we need the profits sometimes to provide the care, but the invitation here is to be a bit more interested in the moment-by-moment micro care that we can offer within our working environments, as this is a big start and has massive ripple effects. So, transitioning to the care orientation, and my name is Dr. Tamara Russell from the Mindfulness Center of Excellence in London. So I'm going to speak a little bit here about the three modes of brain that we work with in our work here at the Mindfulness Center across the various projects. I'm going to speak a little bit about the permission and language that we use when we're communicating with one another in this care-oriented way, and just how powerful that can be when it's done on a moment-by-moment basis. I'd like to point to the reality of the growing pains that we're likely to experience now, but how some of this view around learning through trauma, or what we call post-traumatic growth, may actually be something we can tap into now, and in fact, how the mindfulness and compassion lens really helps us make the most out of these challenging and difficult moments and really grow from them and learn from them, in a sense that our society is really being invited to do that now. And how managing the fear and the uncertainty is really our most vital tool that we have right now. It's okay if you're not okay, but those that are able to mindfully manage the madness, as we call it, really are showing us the way in how we can be in these states of fear and uncertainty, and yet also still have that sense of grounding and connection and mindfulness and heartfulness. So transitioning mindfully into this meeting is something I would like to invite you to do now. And you may have your own process for this, but if you wish, I will invite you to follow my instructions so we can come into this time together really with presence, with high quality attention, the best we can muster, really let our brains and our minds absorb the information so we can think, how is this going to be useful for me, or how can I use this information to maximize my processes? So I'm inviting now a shoulder roll, moving the shoulders backwards slowly as you tune into the body with the attention. And this is a vital part of preparing the body to be healthy as we work online. And it's more than a shoulder roll, because you're bringing directly the attentional focus to the shoulders in a mindful way. So you're training self-compassion right now by moving the body gently forwards and backwards, or any way that's possible for you. You've just done in your mind a care orientation by choosing a mindful shoulder roll rather than just, I moved my shoulders. You might try a head tip left and right, nice and slow, taking this opportunity to train your inhibitory networks, ear to shoulder, ear to shoulder, and slow it down, slow it down. You might need to do some massage, another type of care, or perhaps just take a look at that image on the screen. Really begin to tune in to the tones of green, the patterns, the lines, and the edges, connecting to the body, transitioning mindfully into the technology and an online meeting, and tuning into nature. If we can't look out a window, we don't have the option for real world greens. How can we use the technology? And just as we finish off, maybe tuning into your own personal intentions for being here today. Maybe it's learning, maybe it's connecting, maybe it's just listening and you'll watch later. And so let's proceed, reorienting attention. And I'm really, in some ways, excited about some of the opportunities that are coming to us as a society as we reorganize our living and our working lives. It's been forced upon us, but it's certainly true that we are now in uncharted territory. The language of our leadership and politicians is often unprecedented times. So these are some new opportunities that are both perhaps scary and maybe also exciting. And I'd like to share, I guess, some of the excitement that I experience when I think about what this means for how we can reorient to different, more healthy ways of working together and working with tech and working globally. And I like to use the metaphor of these old maps before Google, the days when we didn't know the whole surface of the world. Actually, we had to discover new places, and the language of Derby dragons representing perhaps some of the anxiety of newness, but also the excitement of discovery and uncovering new opportunities and things that we didn't even think of before, but that may come to us in a moment of real need or real crisis. And here's really just a list of some of the habits that are being forced to change right now. This is a rich, rich opportunity for organizations that are willing to take the risk of prioritizing care, because we know from the science that this is the route to increase productivity, increase psychological safety, increase trust, and all of those leading to increases in our innovation and creativity and the capacity to bring everybody's best work and best mind to the table. So many of you now are probably figuring out how to work in your living room or your bedroom, where you're going to school the kids, where's the classroom, where's the gym in your house. We're fundamentally rethinking our activities and the spaces that we're doing them in. Necessarily, this is requiring very different skills for relationship management. How are we all going to get along? How are we not going to kill each other in these coming weeks? Are some of the phrases that I'm hearing from everybody. Many were already doing remote working, but for those that were the nomads or the remote workers, actually still here an opportunity to review and refine how you're working at home and what that looks like to be the most kind and easeful for you. Some of that involves technical issues. I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I needed to sort out my microphone, or, you know, how is the sound quality? And, oh, it's not the ideal home studio that I wanted and that I was planning. So how do we make do, but how do we just continually try to find ways where we can really ensure clear communication, great contact while we're working online, and everybody's got an opportunity to review this here. There are some financial considerations and changes happening as well. It's like every paradigm is being shifted right now. And I've been in that personally myself over the last 18 months. So I do have some familiarity with this space. You know, what is it like when every edge is crumbling? It can be intense, and these are multiple growth edges. So it requires us to be clear about how much we might be stretching and how we're nurturing and feeding and nourishing ourselves in that moment. The language of performing whilst transforming can be seductive, but actually for any real and lasting transformation, my take on this currently is we will need to reduce our performance and be okay with that. And that was already the message to senior leaders and businesses that really wanted to repivot to purpose-oriented service industries, a need to sit back on the profit margins for a while the care piece and the innovation and the creativity piece is developed, because sometimes those two don't easily sit together. As I said before, not about letting go of the financials, we need that, but a sense of reprioritizing now. And that's what this is about. Can we, for the short term at least, maximize care as our orientation and sit back a bit on the profits in order to allow people to stabilize in this moment of transition, and actually vital transition. And for many, it's full chaos. And the work of the Mindfulness Center really is about how do we dance in the chaos. This is work that's been with a variety of individuals and in sectors and spaces where, you know, the standard mindfulness wasn't really going to be able to do the work that was needed. And so we've been developing a variety of collaborations, really working with people who are in high stakes scenarios, whether that's with chronic high stakes physical conditions like heart failure, for example, whether that's managing psychosis or the more extreme end of dissociation and trauma related work, or whether that's busy healthcare professionals, doctors and nurses, you know, who don't have time to stop and sit and do a meditation. Really been working, thinking with those kinds of conditions in mind. So we know how to do this work. And we know that this work requires us to go deep into our own personal stories, our research journey, and shadow work, because this is how you can do these dance. Yeah, this is how you can do this dance. You need to know your own stuff, and people are discovering now, yeah, what's important to me, what are my values here, what is it that I really can bring to the world now, and what's needed. And so in terms of practical things, you know, certainly I'm a big advocate of the transitional pause, and I really think this is one of our top tools for these times, whether you're using this, you know, to transition mindfully in your own home workspace from home to work, or from being dad to being CEO and boss. You know, it's a very practical applied practice that can be done in just 3 breaths. And I'll post some links underneath to some SoundCloud materials where you can get cracking with that. There will be some training on that forthcoming. And, you know, the reality is we are in a moment of what we call the reds, you know, seeing red, whether it's anger or fear. It's a mind-body state that doesn't usually engender clear thinking. And I'm meeting this all over the place, but particularly in senior leadership teams, this sense of just carrying on and doing work in the same way, but actually, you know, not perhaps recognizing enough or creating enough space or processes to work with the reality of the fear and the uncertainty and what that provokes in each of us. And what we're finding in our mindful green working processes is that it does actually really bear fruit when you take the time to acknowledge the reds and see how we can support each other, and just know that it's okay to not be okay. I'm also sort of making a bit of a joke about, we've got this new kind of commute. It's not the reds of the commuting through Sao Paulo traffic or Rio traffic or London traffic. It's actually a new kind of commute, which is adjusting to processes online and being in a different place where we're working, and technology failing us and microphones not working and all of those things. You know, these are the realities of the reds. And just a micro pause at the beginning of the meeting to say, it's okay, don't panic, take your time, take your time. Let's make sure everybody's got a channel that they can communicate with. Let's get the etiquette sorted out. Let's not just bring all these bad habits from our meetings in the office to our meetings online. We've got a chance to change habits right now. It's a fantastic opportunity, but it requires a very real look at, you know, what we bring into the room, the reality of all this agitation around us, and then some clear processes to help us rest and restore, regulate our emotional system, regulate our vagal nerve, and then get down to work, and then get down to these big life-changing decisions that are being made. And we draw on the work of Professor Paul Gilbert here, his so-called 3 circles model. And I know there's a color system in corporate that's a little bit similar to this, but this one does actually come specifically from the compassion-focused work of Paul Gilbert. It's relevant in these times because we are in a moment of trauma, collective trauma, and so therefore trauma-informed psychotherapy work, trauma-informed body work is really our go-to if we want to be brainwise and thoughtful about how to respond ourselves personally, as well as leaders, organizations, or wherever is our sphere of influence. And in that moment of red, of agitation, our brain is in threat mode. It's trying to keep us safe, psychologically safe and physically safe. And it's designed to be on the lookout for all the things that might harm us. And there's no shortage of those in our media, in our minds. You know, there is a reality of a threat that's out there, but actually the mental threat that we perceive and the mental agitation and response to it may actually be even more harmful to us than the bug itself. And many professionals are speaking along these lines. Managing our mental reactivity is probably one of the key things that we can do to help stay safe and boost our immune system, because we know that stress and chronic stress, even stress created in our minds, impacts on our immune system through the damaging effects of cortisol. So this is not to alarm people, but it's to give some very factual information about how brains respond under threat. And, you know, we don't want to get rid of this stuff. We need it, but we must recognize that it may be active at the moment. One of the key ways to manage this is to manage your media, because it's the pings and the beeps and the constant checking of the news and the updates that feeds into the threat system. Yeah, so a beautiful opportunity right now to manage your technology differently, to audit your relationship to technology, and you will notice some immediate benefits. I can pretty much guarantee that. You will notice some immediate benefits from managing your media. This isn't putting your head in the sand, but it's managing when you're going to make contact with news and then acting accordingly. And then after that, your job, we're suggesting, is to do self-care. Take care of yourself, do what you can, physical movements, meditations, practices, massage. I'll share a few tips in a second. But this is what we call using our blue, our drive system, our sort it out, get it done, let's organize things, strategy and planning. Let's use all of that wonderful system to help figure out how we're going to stay well, how we're going to get green, how we're going to nourish ourselves. And this is interesting because what many people are describing now is actually a withdrawal of the blue and the effort that was towards work, because they've actually had to redeploy their blue towards care. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of encouraging people to do this, and there were some that were listening, but they were struggling. And now the coronavirus has actually forced this movement. Yeah, so much red. We can't work anymore because we need to use all our efforts, certainly in this transitional period, towards getting green and managing the reds. So usually we're using our blue to work, to go to work, to deliver the strategy of the organization, to do the planning. It's the project management, it's the outcomes, the targets, the let's get it done. But what's happening now is that those things really have receded into the background as priorities, because people are just needing to reorganize themselves so that they can work in ways that are kind, restorative, not stressful. Yeah, because the work that's getting done when red is layered upon red is layered upon red, this is not smart working. It's not going to produce great work, and our human species can do way better than this. So this shift from withdrawing one type of blue, reorienting it to care, listening, allowing time for the distress, not necessarily fixing the problems. That's a bit of a bluey response to the problem, but just being there and saying, yeah, it's really tough. It's okay that you're not okay. You know, how can I help you manage your media? How can I help you manage your mind? What do you need to get comfortable to figure out your new working pattern? You know, how is it going to work for you to work in a way that works for you? And we needed to do this anyways. We needed to do this work anyways. I was having conversations with corporate. How do we bring real, genuine cognitive diversity into the workplace? It's about adapting to people's different working styles. And now we have to do it. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, all the ways of working weren't working for me, now your time is here to say, how is it going to work for you? And I'm encouraging managers to really open, this is actually real flexible working, not just like, what time do you want to come in? Real flexible working is, how do you like to work? And this is a type of care, the greens as we call it. And much of our work is supporting people to get into the green. I encourage you to go to the getintothegreen.eventbrite.com site. We're going to be putting up various teachings, including things to actually just get you green. This is teaching right now, but we've got a group of great teachers who are willing to offer their services, some of it for free, but much of it paid, because these are really advanced professionals who are bringing deep learning from multiple traditions. And we must value this teaching now. That's so important. But we're also there offering what we can to support people who may not be able to access with payment. And our tagline is, get into the green. Some of that's just about soothing the system. Maybe that's breathing practices. Maybe that's some shoulder rolls. Yeah, some shoulder rolls now even. Tuning into the body again, because we've been online, we've been listening. So let's come back to the posture here as a type of soothing. Maybe it's some breathing practices, one conscious breath, breathing in, breathing out, following it with the mind. Breathing in, breathing out. I'm here, it's now. Feeling your feet on the floor, or just telling your mind, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Yeah, you see I'm making this stroking movement. Also activates the soothing system, regulates the vagal nerve. Maybe some massage, places where your body holds tension, a chance now for you really to get to know your own personal signature of red in the body and maximize green. And sadly, you know, our society, really, we didn't prioritize this. We didn't prioritize this. This played out in the wages of nurses and people who work in care homes versus large organizations. It played out in the school system's focus on SATs and results, leading to an epidemic of mental health crisis in our young people. It's played out in the psychology world, perhaps, with a focus on evidence-based practice and outcomes and scales and metrics. But many therapists feeling that the care and the relationship and the kindness of the therapeutic relationship got lost a bit in some of that automatizing and scaling up of psychological therapies. And so we've been forced now, in a moment of very big red and change and transitioning, to reorient to the care. We could keep doing the blue, but the science tells us, and the clinical work tells us, that in a moment of extreme red, the doing is not the thing to do. You can harness some of your blue, harness some of your strategic thinking and your planning thinking, but the topic must solely be about green, self-care, nurturing, health for my body, What can I do? You know, if I can't get to the doctor, if I can't get to the chiropractor, I'm invited to get to know my own body and start to be my own doctor. And this is a beautiful transition to a new healthcare model where we are responsible for the bulk of our health. Yeah, we are. It's our body. Now, we've not been given the tools necessarily to really learn how to do that, so we need education. But there are many opportunities out there, and many of them are there now for free to try, to test, to see what makes me get in the green, what makes my body feel good, how can I get back to balance, and what is this green antidote to our current situation. So I'm going to pause there and just give a little bit of a summary, and then I'm going to stop the recording and open up to some discussions from the people that have joined today. So we covered Paul Gilbert's 3 colors model: the red of the threat system, the blue of the drive system, and the green of the soothing system. And there's more detail really on all of that, but just as a first piece of information sharing, to invite you to have some curiosity about your average working day and the ratio of those 3 colors as you go through your day. Maybe you could even tune in now, you know, how am I now? And one way you can tell how you are is really how far your shoulders are up towards your ears. And that's really one of the reasons I love the mindful shoulder roll as a core practice. It's the green antidote to stress. It's the green antidote to long hours working at the computer. It's the green antidote to learning perhaps how to be with pain and chronic pain. Much of the mindfulness work, of course, came from chronic pain studies. How can we be with distress in a kindly way, without trying to fix and make things go away? And that's our challenge now, isn't it? There are some things that are not going to go away, that are causing a big, big red. But the opportunity here is that that red has really forced us to stop and reconfigure how we work, how we learn, how we share, how we go online, how we relate to our technology, how we relate to our health. We're in a moment where mindfulness skills are really going to stand us in good stead, but particularly those mindfulness skills that are tried and tested in these more extreme environments. And so I'll finish there as well with a big shout out to the team and the collaborators worldwide, the brave and courageous people that have been already doing this work for some time now, and inviting you to find your own greens first, really resource yourselves as best you can, and model how it is that when we prioritize the green, we can manage the reds, and actually the blue that we do is something that has a very, very different quality to it, and can be of benefit to everybody. So I'd say thank you very much and stop recording, and hope to see you online soon. Bye.